They're available on Michael's website where you can watch the videos, pick up the basics, along with tips and tricks on learning how to use UV resin to make your own unique jewelry pieces. Today, we will be showing you how to create UV resin shaker charms and some lovely autumn floral pieces. Everything you need for this class is available at Michael's stores nationwide and on the Michael's website. Stephanie Minor, Blue Moon's creative director, will be your instructor, and she's so excited to share today's projects with you. And behind the scenes, a special call out to our indispensable Rosa Vergaro, who, although off camera, is busy assisting Stephanie with what she needs so you can get the most out of today's class. I am Anne-Marie Menlo, and will be answering your questions via the chat function. We hope you can craft along with us, but if not today, sit back, watch, and enjoy this new jewelry making trend, which is so fun, inspiring, and easy to do with instant gratification results. So without further ado, here's Stephanie to show you how to create your own UV resin one-of-a-kind originals. Stephanie?
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Hello, everyone. We're so glad that you were able to join us today. We're going to be talking all about UV resin, and it's so exciting because it's rare that I get to say this is a completely new way to make jewelry, but it is, and it works almost like magic. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what this material is here. We're going to get you closer into the action. Then we're going to switch cameras so you can really get down in and see how it can be used to make jewelry. So first, let me show you, this is UV resin. It comes in a little bottle. You may have used other resins in the past that are two-part resins. This is one part. This pours out of this bottle ready to use. And that's the big differentiator between UV resin and other resins you may have used in the past. The second thing that differs from AB resin is the cure time. So this cures in 2 to 4 minutes. Comparing that with AB resin, which is two-part resin, which may take 24 hours to cure. So this is instant crafting, instant results for people who have no patience like me. So let me just show you what this is. So this is the UV resin. It cures not in air, but in UV light. So you can leave this. This is a UV lamp. Oh, and I just turned it on. So you can see this is an LED UV lamp. And let me just bring this camera down a little further so you can see my workspace here. Can you see that? Maybe I need to bring this back. Okay. So we have our UV lamp, we have our resin, and then I have a silicone mat here. All of these products are included in what you'll find at Michael's, michaels.com. Silicone mats typically have one matte side and one shiny side, and that texture will transfer to your final piece. And I just have some wood sticks here and a piece of paper. So I want to show you what this does on these different surfaces. So UV resin, I'm just going to put a little dot here and a little dot on the paper. UV resin will adhere permanently, and I just turn the lamp on by hitting the button once, and it will adhere permanently to porous and non-porous surfaces, except silicone. So it will not stick to silicone like so many things, and that makes it perfect as a working surface for your resin. So now this light has been on there for about, I don't know, 20 seconds or so. Let's just give a little peek here and see. Now that was liquid a second ago, and now that is hard plastic. You can see I can move the whole thing. That's hard plastic. Now it's not fully cured. That's just kind of the outside edge. Like I said, the full cure time is about 2 to 4 minutes. And each time you hit the button, it runs for 1 minute, has a self-timer option. I can turn it off and on by hitting the button again. The resin will also cure in sunlight, which is a really, really cool way to craft. You just put it outside for 5 to 8 minutes, depending on what the weather is like where you live, and you're going to get a beautiful cure from sunlight. Okay, so this has gone probably about a minute now. Let's check it out here. So we have a hard piece of plastic right here, and then on the paper we have a little shiny dot, and that is hard as well, and it is permanently on this paper. I could get it off, but I'll probably rip the paper. And so that's our first demonstration of what this material is. The second thing I want to show you is that this is a glass of water, by the way. This does not cure in air. It only cures in UV light. So I'm going to take some of the resin and put a tiny little dot on this wood stick. And I want to show you that even in a completely airless environment, like inside this water, that it's still going to cure. So this means a couple things. First of all, you have complete control over this cure. So you can leave this out on your working surface, play around with it, get things put exactly how you want them before you cure. The second thing that it means is you have to be careful about where you are crafting. If you're in front of a big sunny window, you're probably going to have some problems because your work will start curing before you're ready for it to. So by this demonstration, I want to show you that even without air, this is going to cure to a hard plastic. So you can see that is cured on there. All right.
Hey,
So,
Steph,
yes.
before you move, could you show the bottle a little bit closer? We have a couple of
Sure.
for that. Thank you.
Sure can. Here we go. UV Resin Craft is the name of the line. There are a lot of great products. You can see some of them behind me. I'll bring this back up. Available at Michael's stores right now. This is what it looks like in the package. Inside this package are tips, tricks, and also warnings and safety procedures. So before we switch to the other camera, in terms of safety, if you have a resin allergy, if you have sensitive skin, wear gloves when you're using this. Make sure you work in a well-ventilated area. And like I said, don't work in full sunlight. Anything with direct sunlight is not going to be your friend. So make sure that you have a crafting area that doesn't have a ton of sunlight on it. Okay, so we're ready to switch cameras to the other view and make some jewelry. Okay, so I will try to do this class front facing and see how it goes. So can you move that down a little bit so we can try to see what my surface here? Yes, now I can't see what I'm doing very well, but hopefully you can. Sorry about all the mess. It was not supposed to look like this. So I'm just going to start, and we have Rosa holding that camera for us. Okay, thank you guys for being patient. Let's get started. So first we're going to make a necklace with a wood bezel. And here's our wood bezel. I need another one without the thing in it. And we wanted to show you, this is what the wood bezels look like. Sorry, I can't see what you see, but hopefully I'm holding this in the right area. Okay. These are wood bezels. I wanted to show you how it works. So I'll have to open up the package. So inside the package are wood bezels and these little eye screws. So can you see this?
We can.
It's like a little screw. And so you just take the bezel. And first thing you want to do is insert the screw. So inside there's a pre-drilled hole. And so you just screw this in. It helps to hold this with pliers. Once you get it going, you can just screw that in and you end up with this. Now I'm going to go really quickly through this first project because I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for the second project. So whenever you use a bezel, I saw somebody ask, what is a bezel? A bezel is any kind of frame. This is like a frame. You want to start with resin tape. This is a low tack polyester tape. And this is what we put on the back of the bezel in order to not make the resin flow out of it. So here, I want to just kind of rub that on my surface so I can make sure that that is adhered all the way to the back. And then we take our resin, put a little dot in there, just a tiny bit, and I want to take a wood stick. And move that around. And then I want to pre-cure that under the lamp. I'm going really quickly with this one because we lost some time there, and I want to get to the main project. So you want to kind of pre-cure that first layer in there for maybe 30 seconds or so, not a long time, just enough for it to start to harden. And then we're going to put our flowers on top of that. All right, so let's say that's enough time. I'm going to turn my lamp off, get another wood stick, and I'm going to put another little tiny dot of resin in there. And I dip my wood stick into the resin. I like to use this side of the wood stick for that. Into the resin, and I'm going to go over here and pick up one of the flowers and just put that in. And gently pressing down. And then I just cover the whole thing with resin. Yes, this is pre-mixed resin. UV resin is a lot different than the two-part resins that you may have seen, where there's no mixing involved. So I don't know if you can see, but I ended up with one little air bubble right here. And so I'd like to show you what to do to fix that. I like to just poke at it, and I happen to get that on the first poke. And I just pop that little bubble. And now this is ready to go for the final cure. And so that will encase that flower inside the resin and preserve it forever. I want to show you our made-ups here. I'm still trying to figure out where the camera is. Oh, there's my top-down video. Oh my goodness, hello. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. Here we go. Here's my workspace. Here's my lamp. Here's this curing. Woohoo! All right, so while that's curing, I just want to show you our made-ups here. So these are our made-ups. We've added some other flowers. Here we layered 2 different flowers. And then you can see the difference. See how this is shiny all the way to the edge? And this one is not. And that's just because on this one, we took the resin all the way to the edge here, and it just gives a little slicker look. This one, we kept the matte finish of the wood. Jean had a question, how to keep it from being tacky. That is a common question with UV resin. There may be some surface tackiness on it. And the way I found to deal with that the best is by putting it outside or in a sunny area for just a few minutes. And that seems to take away the any type of surface tackiness that you have. All right, so we have that going. And now I'm going to just quickly switch gears to this project. So this is a keychain, and it is a shaker keychain. Can you hear that? Shaking it. These things free float inside there. So we've got a monogram letter, we've got some pearls in there, some little metal pieces. And this is what we're going to make. I'm just going to move this to the side. We'll come back to that. This one, instead of using a bezel, we use a mold. This is the mold that we use for that. This is a high quality silicone mold, and this is our basic shapes mold. This is one of, I think we've got maybe 12 different molds. We've got ring molds, like this makes different rings. We've got our letter molds right here. And so actually we're going to be using both of these molds to create our keychain. So let's get started on that right away. This is the shape that makes this box. And it's important to understand that whenever you're using a mold, the front of what you're making is actually the bottom. So the bottommost point that the resin hits is the front of your piece. And you want to keep that in mind because you want to front face the components and just generally make it look good. Now to start this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start filling this with resin, directly pouring from the bottle into this mold. And you want to try to work that resin down into the corners. This is a 3D shape. So you want to make sure that it's getting, what I like to do is kind of stick my wood stick in there, press down, and just make sure that that resin is flowing. Now this is, I understand this is very, very hard for you to see because we're doing clear on clear, but it will become easier here in just a minute. So where you may get like a little pocket of air is in these corners. So pay special attention to the corners. I'm going to pour a little more resin. And I also want to pay special attention to this loop up here, making sure that I'm getting that resin in all parts of the loop. All right, so this is about, I would say this is about 80% filled. Let me just kind of move this to the side. All right, and now we want to start adding some floral elements. So encased in this resin is our greenery and gold flakes. Here's the back of it. You can see the back of it. So I'm going to add those two things. Our greenery comes in, this is like what you buy in stores. So you can see there's a lot of different flowers. We're going to be using these green little branchy parts, which look like this. These are very delicate. They are dried flowers. So you want to be careful working with these. And what I want to do is just kind of cut it up. And I want to preserve the little branchiness. Otherwise it might look like just green confetti. So I'm kind of cutting these off of the main stem. And then just pulling them apart a little bit. Okay. All right, so here's our green pieces. So I'm going to place those where I want them to go. So I'm kind of going to tuck these down into the side. Picking it up, tucking it down. Kind of going all the way around the edges. You can see I have an air bubble right here. I'm gonna pop that. Be gone with you, air bubble. We don't want you here. Okay, and these tuck down into the sides. You can add as much or as little as you want. And I'm gonna show you different styling options that you can do just from the techniques you're gonna learn in this class. So this class, obviously, we are doing, this is a little more, you know, kind of grown-up look. I'm going to show you different ways you can style something like this to have a lot of different looks. Okay, so now we're ready for some gold flakes. Same thing. I'm kind of picking up one flake at a time, and I'm going to place this exactly where I want it to go. So some of them I'm going to tuck in, some of them are going to show on this back panel. And you can, you know, you have a lot of working time here, so you can get this placed exactly where you want it to go. All right, let's make this look a little prettier here. All right. And so now I just want to make sure that this is Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Okay. All right, so we're going to start curing this. This, I want to keep this in frame so you can see. Bring my lamp to it, turn that on. Now, because this is a 3D piece, you do want to cure it for the full, I'm just kind of cleaning my area here. You do want to cure it for several minutes. So while we do that, I want to show you the different styling options. This is where you can really have fun with it and add personality. So this same project, we can style it with confetti and bright colors. Look at this confetti on the back of that. And then inside here, we put another monogram and some seed beads. You can also style it in this way. This way we made into a necklace. And inside this one, there are some little plastic gems. This one, we use some very brightly colored little polymer clay slices inside there. And here, we used some little fruit slices. How cute are those? And finally, I'm gonna run this again. So that went for 1 minute. I'm gonna turn it on again. And finally, this one's really cool. We put a picture in there. We usually get a lot of questions about, can you use paper? And yes, you can use paper with resin. We actually have an upcoming class on September 30th that deals specifically with that. How do you use paper in resin projects? So this is a little preview of one of the projects that we're gonna do, but you can use paper. So you have a lot of different styling options. You can decide what goes into the frame and then what you put inside the frame. All right, so while that's still curing, let me clean this up a little bit, and I'm gonna actually work with this frame here. So this frame is gold glitter, so you can see what it looks like when it pops out. Okay, so the next thing that you wanna do once you pop this out of the mold is you want to drill a hole, because let me get my example here. So we have added a tassel here to the bottom. To make the tassel attached to the box, we have to have a connection point here. So let me show you how to do that. This is the drill. This is also sold at Michael's, and I just line that up to where I want to create a hole here at the bottom and just start twisting. And it really only takes a few seconds. This is a very thin piece of resin. Oops. So it doesn't take long for this to get through. I'm just having a little issue with lining it up. Okay, let's switch drills here. There we go. There we go. So you can see it poked through. And now we have a hole in the bottom. Can you see the hole? All right, so to that, we want to take a head pin. This is one of the basic building blocks of jewelry making. This is a head pin. And I'm going to feed that head pin through the hole like that. All right, so that will not poke through. And to secure it, I'm actually going to put a tiny, tiny little dot. Actually, I'll put the dot here on my mold. A tiny little dot of UV resin there. Settle it down into where I want it to go, and I'm going to try to hold it. And bring the lamp right to it. And that will lock that in place. All right, let's see if these both can cook at the same time. All right. Okay, so while that just cures a little bit, the next thing we're going to do is use our alpha mold to create a monogram to go inside there. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit for this part. Okay, so let that go. I want you to see that that is stuck on there now. All right. Now we have to basically cut off this whole tail and make a little loop here. This is the one part of this that if you're not a jewelry maker, let me turn this on again. If you're not a jewelry maker, this might trip you up a little bit. So I'm just going to do it quickly by creating a wrapped loop, a basic loop, sorry. I'm sorry, that is not all the way cured. Let me just put another dot of resin. Oop, that one's cured. And let's let that sit for a little bit. Okay, I'm actually going to move this off screen so that we can deal with this monogram mold. All right, so I want to add this tassel to the bottom of my shaker. So I want my monogram to match this color, which is kind of like a burgundy color. So we can tint this resin, and we do that by using a little silicone cup. And these are the resin tints. So this is how they're sold in stores. This one's white, black, and red. We've got more of like a primary kind of a look here. And so those are the best way we found to tint resin. Now I'm gonna pour a little tiny bit of resin, that's all I need. And then I'm gonna use our red tint. And make sure when you use the tint for the first time, you'll have to cut off the very tip of it to get that to flow. I'm going to put 2 drops in there. And let's see what kind of color we get. Let me mix this around. You can see it's very concentrated. I'm going to add just a little more of the red. 1 more drop, I think. And mix that around. Okay, wiping my stick off with, I always keep a wet paper towel or a baby wipe so I can kind of just wipe my stick off as I need to do that. And we're gonna make the letter R here because that's my son's initial and it's his birthday today. And I'm just using the pointy part of the stick, just picking up a little bit of resin and just dropping it in there where I want it to go. Have patience with this step. You will be able to clean up your mistakes here, but it's always nice if you can just kind of drop it exactly where you want it to go. Oh, I got a hair. And so I want to fill this mold until it's right at the top. And now that's ready to cure. All right, so let's put this on to cure and go back to this piece here. So you want to create a simple loop here. And like I said, this is kind of a little more intense with jewelry making. Basically, we just want to curl, we want to cut this wire and then curl it into a little loop. See, I'm going to cut it off to about that size. And there's a special pair of pliers. These are round nose pliers. And then I just grab it at the end, twist it back into a loop. And that just creates a loop there. So we can attach anything to this. We can attach a piece of chain to this. We can attach some charms, or we can attach a tassel. Okay, so that's how you attach something to the bottom. So let's pretend, well, let me just actually go ahead and attach that. So I just want to kind of bend this until I can get my jump ring on there and bend it back into place. And that's how I add a tassel to the bottom. Okay, so this has gone for 1 cycle. I'm just going to put it in for another cycle. And let's move this up here. This went through for a few cycles. I mean, this feels ready for me. And I didn't spend a lot of time placing these elements exactly where I want them. So, but this is the most fun part when you get to take it out of the mold. So you can see it makes like an empty box, an empty frame. Okay, so that one I will just kind of set to the side. I'm going to keep working this one. Okay, now we need to create our top so that whatever we put in there will stay in there. And the best thing I've found to do that is, you know, we always like to recycle. So this plastic that comes on our product, that comes on baked goods, lots of products that you see, is the perfect plastic for making covers for shakers. So this is wonderful to reuse this. If you wanted to buy this, this would be called like transparency sheets from if you went to high school in the 90s, you're familiar with, but that's all this is. I have a piece of that plastic right here that I've already cut off of another package. So I want to take my charm. We want to create a little cover that is the exact right size. So I'm going to take a dry erase marker and just kind of go around the edges. Let me switch hands. Dry erase marker, I mean, you can use any type of marker here, but the dry erase really makes it easy. And we want to create a wonky looking rectangle like that. And then with scissors, just cut it out. Okay, now I've already done that. I have that here. And it's right here. And I just wipe off the dry erase marker afterwards. So we basically have 3 sides of the box here. Here's our 4th side. We're going to adhere that with UV resin in a minute. The first thing we want to do is fill it up with all the fun stuff. So first, let's take our Monogram, demold that. How cool that is. These are high quality silicone molds, so you get very detailed areas of what you're casting. So that's going in there. Let's see, what else do we want to put in there? How about some pearls? These pearls come in, I want to show you, this is like my favorite item that we sell. This is called the Mega Filler Pack. And it is exactly what it sounds like. There's all different fun stuff in here. There's flaky glitters and confetti glitters and your traditional fine glitters. But then we also have some real dried flowers, some polymer clay little fruits and flowers, and then some metal bits too, and pearls. So this is a great buy. So let's put some pearls in there. You can put as little or as many as you want. Okay, and let me also show you, these are some other items. You can kind of dial it to whatever you want. Let's put these things in there. These are like little triangles. We'll shake some of those in there. All right, so when we have everything in there that we want, we're ready to put our cover on. So as I do this cover part, I want to talk about using baby oil to make this a wet shaker. So what we're making, all of these samples that we have are dry shakers. So the product is just dry and shaking around in there. You can make this completely watertight. And you can add baby oil so that when you turn it, it kind of has that slow flowing motion. Those are super cool. And you can definitely make those with UV resin by filling this to the top with baby oil. Okay, so let me just put a little dot of resin here. Take my trusty stick, dip it in the resin, and now I want to kind of just paint this on very carefully along this outside edge. I want to be careful to get all of the edges and not put too much. I don't want this resin kind of dripping inside. All right, painting all around the edges. And then you may want to use tweezers for this part, placing this, because you may get some, actually I need to use my fingers to pick it up and put it in the tweezers. All right, so you don't want to get fingerprints on this part, because if there's fingerprints on this side, well, those are going to be there permanently. We don't want that. Get this. Let's get you right up on the action here. So this is already perfectly sized for this, and I just have to lay it down. And then just kind of center it exactly where I want it to go. If there's additional resin that is kind of poking out, I can clean that up either with my wood stick or the tweezers, but that seems to be pretty well centered on there. And so we're ready to cure that in place. After this is done, you can turn this into a necklace by adding a chain. You can turn this into a keychain. You can turn it into a charm. There's a lot of different things that you can do with this. And I would love to see the creative things that you make with this product. So as this is curing, I think it's a good time to kind of open up the floor for questions. If you have a question, use the chat function and shoot us one, and I'd love to answer your questions. Thank you so much for sticking with us toward the end. That was a little bit rough. I think I had 4 heart attacks during those technical problems, but here we are, we're making resin. Thank you so much, and let's see, do you have any questions for me?
Let me see. I have been trying to keep up during all of this. How about, can you mix tints? I did answer yes, but you may be a better expert at this than I am, Stephanie.
Yes, you can absolutely mix those tints together to get all of your kind of secondary colors. You can make them more opaque by adding a little drop of white in. You can mix them all together. And just to piggyback on that question, you can use a lot of things to tint resin. These tints work the best because they are resin-based tints. Water-based tints or oil-based tints don't work quite as well. They don't just like meld into the resin as well as these tints do.
Can you speak a little bit to the molds, the use of other molds?
Sure.
Colored molds, etc. Thanks. Steph.
I would love to. So here's again one of our molds. This is one I haven't shown before, but this has some fun unicorn trend shapes. And right away, you'll see how clear these molds are. Compare that with a lower quality mold that I have like right here. So you can see right away the clarity difference. And you can see how floppy this is and how rigid this is. The rigidity and the clarity of the molds really become important when you're dealing with UV resin, because if those UV rays can't reach all parts of your shape, it's just not going to cure as well. So that's why our molds are great. Now, you do not want to use any type of opaque mold. These are like soap molds, chocolate molds. You don't want to use this. It will not cure correctly in there because the light just won't be able to reach. It does funky stuff with opaque mold. So that's why you want to go with a good quality silicone clear mold. All right, so this piece is done. Let's shake it around so you can see that it shakes there. And at this point, all I have to do is add on a keychain finding to turn this into a keychain, which we have here. These are the small keychain findings. They have the larger ones too that are more like, like the size of a quarter. But I do have those, and the way that those attach is, so this is just a keychain finding. I can go in here, open this up with my nail and hopefully not ruin my manicure. And see how I've kind of opened that up, and just slide your charm on, and then you have a keychain. Okay. All right. Any other questions? I saw a few come through really quickly. I wasn't able to read them.
One question, Steph, on that particular, the keychain. if you wanted to not use the plastic on the top, could you use just use that box mold and just put a little bit of resin and make your own top?
I think that the plastic just works a lot better. You can, of course, try to cast something with the resin that will cover it. But what you'll find is when you're trying to cast really, really thin things, that it tends to accumulate in the edges of the mold. So you won't get a completely flat piece if it's very thin. You will get it completely flat if it's a little thicker. So that's why I recommend using some type of a recycled plastic for the front of this.
And this is a question I certainly couldn't ask, but you probably can. Pearl-Ex, can that be used with the UV resin?
Pearl-Ex, I believe, is like a mica powder, right? It's like a pigment powder. And yes, you can use that in UV resin. That performs very similar to what glitter would look like inside the resin.
Thanks. Learning something new every day here.
Yes, Pearl-Ex is a mica pigment. Okay, glad I got that right. What about alcohol ink? Thank you, Lisa, for your question. Alcohol ink, we have tried it with this resin. I know with two-part resins, it makes these beautiful drop effects. We did not have good results using alcohol inks with UV resin. It just doesn't react with a resin in the same way. It can be used, but it doesn't cure well, and it doesn't mix with the resin well. So if you used it, you would have to completely encase it in the UV resin in order for it to have a seal. All right, any other questions?
I might have been typing, but did you show the different types of molds that we have in the
Sure. We have everything for you. These are bead molds, so you can make your own beads. This comes in two different sizes. This makes like a rondelle shaped bead. I'll show you the bottom of them. Sometimes it's easier to see what it makes from the bottom of the mold. Okay, so that's the bead mold. This mold, I love. This, oops, upside down. This is a mold that is exclusive to Michaels. You will not find this anywhere in the universe except Michaels stores. Actually, let me move this out of the way. And so this is great for making earrings. So you have kind of like your earring topper, a bar, you have different donut shapes for making dangle earrings. You can make stud earrings out of this. This is very cool. I wanted to show you this one that I kind of showed earlier where we put a picture in there. This picture was printed on a ColorJet printer. This is my home printer. And I did not prepare this picture in any way. We're going to go into that more in depth in our September 30th class, but I wanted to show you this. This is actually a picture of my mom and dad at their wedding. And how wonderful would it be if I had a little bead from her wedding dress or a little flower from a dried bouquet that I could put in here. You can really make it like a shadow memory box, which I think is really, really cool. Let me show you a couple more molds. This has a piece of greenery in it, but this is a bangle mold. And I'll show you what comes out of this mold. This one we put all the glitters, every glitter we put in there. And that's what comes out of the mold. This is another very popular one. These are hoop earrings. And this is what comes out of that mold. Here we use flowers, and here we use glitters. This hoop mold makes two different sizes, sort of your larger size hoop and your small size hoop. And it comes with the metal parts that you need in order to turn it into a hoop. So you cast it, and then you add the metal piece separately. This one's really popular. I'll show you some of the ring molds. So here's our ring mold again. This makes sizes 4 through 9. These are some of the rings that we made with that. Just with glitter, different colors of glitter. and then this one, we just put a little piece of silver cording down inside the mold and added clear resin, and it creates a ring. You can also use this ring mold to create shakers. I have an example of that here. So first you cast the outside piece, just like we did, and then we added resin. Can I show the resin box that I started, this one?
Yes. The mold, could you show the mold?
Oh, the mold, yeah, sure. Here's the mold that came from. Here's the mold, this is the shape. I'm going to turn it around so you can see the back. That can sometimes help to. So in the back, you can see this is the shape. This also has a cube mold, which is very useful. It has a connector mold that has a hole on either side and different earring and pendant shapes.
And Stephanie, putting the metal onto the earring, can you explain how we did that in another class? So everyone feel free to watch the video on that, but Stephanie, can you just give a brief explanation?
Sure. So you pop the shape out of the mold, and this piece, along with the earring back, is included inside the mold, inside the package that you buy. And we just take a drop or two of UV resin and kind of hold this on there, hold the back on there where we want it to go, and just cure it in place. And it creates a very strong cure. I actually do it 2 times. Here's the finding that we're talking about. This is what you're going to be sticking on. So let's pretend that this earring doesn't have that. And let's add this to the side. I'll just show you. Put a little drop. Place this on there. And I'm doing this very messily. I'm sorry about that. Place that where I want it to go. And just lock it in place with the UV light. So usually, like I said, I do this twice. I just place it once and then I'll go in with a second kind of dot on top of it to really lock it into place. And that's how it's done. And I would do that for a full minute, but I'm not gonna, actually I can just let it go here. I saw another question on the tackiness, and like I said, that is a common challenge with UV resin, but the best way I've found to deal with that is run it through the mold, through the light a few more times, or put it in sunlight. And I didn't get to talk about the sunlight part, but sunlight is my favorite way of curing this because you just cannot compare the true pure UV rays from the sun to any man-made lamp, no matter how good this is. It just doesn't compare. I live in California, so we have sun all times of the year. And if I have a little tackiness, I just set it outside for 3-4 minutes and it is perfectly smooth and really gets rid of that tackiness.
And how about rough edges, Steph? If you find
rough edges. Okay, so let's take this one. So if you pop it out of the mold and you have a little bit of a rough edge, this one is so perfectly smooth. Let me try to find one that has a rough edge. This one does a little bit. What you can do is go in with a nail file. We have a very fancy nail file here. You always want to, if you're going to sand it, you want to sand it wet because you do not want to be breathing in these little plastic dusts that you would create. So you can sand it with a nail file. You can sand it with a high number grit, so a very fine grit sandpaper. And usually what you'll need to do is just kind of like knock off any high parts like this, just knock that off and it'll come off. If you're still having some challenges there, what I would suggest is going over top of it with like a dome of resin. So I'm gonna do that here, just carefully lay that down and just cure it again. And that will give you a perfectly smooth finish. So 3 ways of dealing with sharp edges: sandpaper, nail file, or just kind of put another dome of resin on top of it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Oh, before I sign off, May, I've seen you post this question a couple times, so I do want to address that. Could I, Anne-Marie, what is that full question? Because I'm only seeing the first few words.
About the warmth. Are you talking about, I've
Yeah,
noticed.
the warmth.
Yes, when making something, how soon after making a piece is it safe to unmold it?
When it comes out of the mold, it'll just be a little bit warm because that's from a chemical reaction that's happening that's turning it into hard plastic. It does release a little bit of heat. So I would just wait 30 seconds, a minute, something like that, and the heat will be gone. We just want to be sure that if you're molding any metal pieces, the metal might get a little warm. That should go away within a minute.
And then
Okay.
one more step
Oh, yes.
before you
Yes.
go. Fingerprints, how do you avoid it when you're, taking something out of the mold if it's a little bit tacky?
I sometimes use my fingernails to just very gently coax something out of a mold and just kind of drop it onto my work surface and then start curing it again. If you find that you have embedded a fingerprint in there, what you can do is go over the top of it, just like I did here, go over the top of it with another thin layer of resin, and that'll take care of it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining and sticking with us through all of our challenges. We really appreciate it, and we hope we see you next time on our September 30th class, which will be up on the Michaels website soon.